I never thought I'd be that guy writing one of these long confession posts on Reddit, but here we are. I guess I just need to get this out of my chest, for closure, for peace, or maybe because I finally feel like I've won, in the quietest, most unexpected way. My name's Ryan, I'm 28, living in Denver, Colorado. I work in software, not exciting, but stable. I'm the kind of guy who'd rather spend weekends hiking in the Rockies or cooking dinner at home than going out drinking. Madison, though, she was different. The moment I met her, she was color. The kind of person who could walk into a room and pull everyone's eyes without even trying. She had this wild, infectious laugh that made people want to be near her. I fell fast. Too fast. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue 3 summers ago. She worked in marketing, smart, charming, always talking about big dreams, starting her own agency, traveling to Europe, owning a place with a view of the mountains. I was more of a realist, but I loved how she made life feel bigger. Within 6 months, we moved in together. I thought I'd found my forever person. The slow cracks. Things were perfect for about a year. Or maybe I just wanted to believe they were. I started noticing little things, late nights at work, her phone always face down, inside jokes about her team that didn't include me. When I asked, she'd laugh it off. "Ryan, you're paranoid," she'd say, rolling her eyes. Not everyone is cheating just because they're busy. I wanted to believe her. I did. Then came the first real crack. It was a random Thursday night. She said she was out with coworkers for drinks, but when she got home past midnight, her hair smelled like cologne. Not hers, his. I asked, "Who's wearing Hugo Boss on your marketing team?" She froze. Then smirked. "You're really sniffing my hair now? That's creepy." I laughed it off, but something in my chest tightened. I started doubting everything. The message that shattered everything. The truth came out by accident. I'd been using her old laptop one weekend because mine was updating. A notification from Jake M. popped up, a name I didn't recognize. The message preview said, "Last night felt like college again. You always knew how to make me forget everything." My stomach dropped. I opened it. Dozens of messages, months of them. Photos, hotel receipts, the works. Turns out Jake wasn't just a random coworker. He was her college ex, the one she said was toxic and long gone. She'd been seeing him behind my back for nearly a year. When I confronted her, she didn't even deny it. Her exact words. "You've changed, Ryan. You're boring now. Jake understands me." I remember laughing, a hollow, bitter sound. "So your solution is to sleep with him?" She shrugged. I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did. That night, I packed a bag and left. The aftermath. I spent weeks in a fog. Moved into a tiny one-bedroom near Capitol Hill. Barely ate. Barely slept. Denver winters can be brutal, gray skies, cold air that bites your lungs, and somehow, that matched how I felt inside. Madison didn't reach out much at first. Just one text. "I hope someday you'll forgive me." I didn't respond. What hurt most wasn't just the betrayal, it was realizing how much of myself I'd lost trying to keep her happy. I stopped hiking. I stopped playing guitar. I stopped being me. That's when my buddy Tom stepped in. He'd been friends with both of us, but after the breakup, he made it clear. "Man, I'm on your side. She messed up bad." He dragged me out to do things, poker nights, gym sessions, even weekend hikes in Boulder. Slowly, I started breathing again. Karma begins. About 6 months later, I ran into Tom at a bar. He looked like he had something juicy to share. "You'll never guess who I saw," he said, grinning. "Who?" "Madison. At Union Station. With Jake. And dude, He paused for dramatic effect. They were fighting. Like, screaming in public fighting. I laughed for the first time in months. He told me Jake had moved to Denver to be with her, but apparently, he hadn't changed one bit. Same old cheating, same old lies. Madison was getting a taste of her own medicine. A few weeks later, I saw her too, at a grocery store, of all places. She looked tired. Hair unkempt, eyes puffy, like someone who hadn't slept. She saw me, froze, then forced a smile. "Hey, Ryan. How are you?" I just nodded. "Doing great. You?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Trying." That one word, trying, told me everything. Finding myself again. Healing didn't happen overnight. It took months. I started hiking again. Took a solo trip to Arizona. Focused on work. But the best part? I found peace in solitude. One Saturday morning, while hiking near Golden, I met Emily. She was sitting on a rock sketching the mountain skyline. She smiled and said, "Beautiful view, huh?" Something about her calm energy just grounded me. We started talking, about everything from hiking trails to failed relationships. She'd been through her own heartbreak, and there was something comforting about that honesty. We didn't rush things. We just let it happen naturally. Part 2, When Karma Finally Knocks. It's funny how life moves on quietly while you're busy healing. By the time spring rolled around in Denver, I was a completely different man from the one who had walked out of that apartment 6 months before. I had muscle tone again. I was smiling more. My playlist had changed from sad indie songs to classic rock. Most importantly, I'd stopped checking her social media. You know that moment when you realize you've finally detached? When you can think of their name without that sharp pain in your chest. That was me. I didn't hate Madison anymore. I didn't wish her pain. I just didn't care. But life has a dark sense of humor. Because that's right when she came back into it. The text message. It was a Tuesday night in early May. I was finishing a project when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. The message said, "Hey, it's Madison. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. Temptation and clarity. There was a time when I would have said yes instantly. When my loneliness would have screamed louder than my pride. But sitting there across from her, I saw her differently. Not as the woman I loved, but as a stranger who taught me one of the hardest lessons of my life. You know what's crazy?" I said finally. For a long time, I blamed myself. I thought maybe if I'd been more fun, more spontaneous, maybe you wouldn't have cheated. Her eyes widened, like she didn't expect me to be so calm. But I realized something. It wouldn't have mattered. You weren't looking for love. You were looking for attention. And that's not something I can compete with. She whispered, "I've changed." "Maybe," I said. "But I have too." We sat in silence. The kind of silence that weighs 100 pounds. Then I stood up, walked to the door, and opened it. Her lips trembled. "So that's it?" "That's it," I said gently. "I forgive you. But I'm not walking that road again." She nodded slowly, eyes glossy. Then she left, quietly, like a ghost fading into the night. The peace that follows. I won't lie, after she left, I felt a weird emptiness. Like closing a book you've been reading for too long. But underneath that, there was peace. For the first time in years, my life felt mine again. Emily and I had been texting off and on, just friendly stuff about hikes and weekend plans. A few days later, she invited me to join a small group heading to Mount Evans. I said yes. That trip changed everything. Emily was calm in all the ways Madison had been chaos. Where Madison talked to fill silence, Emily listened. Where Madison chased drama, Emily chased sunsets. I remember sitting on a rock overlooking the snow-capped peaks, and Emily said, "You look like someone who finally exhaled." I smiled. "Yeah," I said. "I guess I did." Karma in full circle. Months passed. I didn't hear from Madison again until one random fall evening. She texted me a photo, a sunset over Sloan's Lake, with a simple message. "I'm trying to be better. Thank you for being kind when you didn't have to." I didn't reply. Not out of anger, but because I knew she didn't need my words anymore. She needed her own peace. Tom later told me she'd moved to another city, started therapy, and was actually doing okay now. And weirdly enough, I was happy to hear that. Because forgiving someone doesn't mean you let them back in, it means you stop carrying their weight. I'd found love again, quiet, patient, honest love, with someone who didn't need fixing. Someone who didn't mistake comfort for boredom. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel haunted by what I'd lost. Only grateful for what I'd learned. Final reflection. People ask sometimes if I'd ever take Madison back, even now. No. Not because I hate her, but because some stories are meant to end. Some people are just lessons dressed as lovers. Madison taught me that love without respect is just chaos in disguise. Jake taught her that karma has perfect timing. And I learned that sometimes, the best revenge is simply living a peaceful life. Epilogue, 1 year later. Last month, Emily and I went back to that same trail where we first met. As we watched the sunset paint the Rockies gold, she said, "You ever think about the people who hurt us, and how different life turned out?" I nodded. Yeah. But I think we needed them, to become who we are now. She smiled. So, no regrets. I looked at her, hand in mine, heart light as air. None. And that's the truth. Because in the end, karma didn't just come for her, it freed me too. Part 3, the fall, the lesson, and the quiet kind of happiness. If you've ever wondered whether karma has GPS, trust me, it does. And it doesn't miss an address. A few months after that final text from Madison, I thought the book was finally closed. I was wrong. Turns out, life had one last chapter left for both of us. The downfall. Tom and I grabbed beers one Friday after work at a small spot downtown, brick walls, dim lighting, that perfect Denver mix of chill and mountain hipster vibes. He was halfway through his IPA when he said, "Hey, man, you heard about Madison?" I felt my stomach tighten, not from longing, just curiosity. "No," I said carefully. "What about her?" Tom sighed. "It's kinda bad. Jake got arrested." I blinked. "What? For what?" "Bar fight. Assault. Apparently, he smashed a bottle over some guy's head after accusing him of flirting with Madison. Whole thing blew up on social media. Dude's mugshot is everywhere." I let out a low whistle. "Yikes." Tom nodded grimly. "Yeah. Madison was there when it happened. Tried to calm him down. Cops showed up. She got questioned too, but she wasn't charged. She's been laying low since then." I didn't say much, just stared into my drink, feeling a strange mix of shock, pity, and inevitability. Because this was exactly where that path led. When you build your life around chaos, you can't act surprised when it burns down. Tom continued, he was living off her, too. Borrowing money, driving her car. Dude's been out of work for months. She was paying for everything. I raised an eyebrow. "Sounds familiar." He chuckled dryly. "Yeah, right? Anyway, she's moved back in with her parents for now. Her mom mentioned she's taking time to find herself. The same old phrase. The one she used every time she ran from accountability. I didn't say it out loud, but I couldn't help thinking. Maybe this time she'll actually find herself. A quiet shift. Meanwhile, my life was doing the opposite of falling apart, it was quietly thriving. Work was going great. The promotion I'd once sacrificed for her drama finally came through. I was leading a small dev team, working on projects that actually excited me. And outside work? Emily and I were growing closer by the week. We weren't rushing it. No labels, no forced milestones. Just, showing up for each other. She'd bring me lunch when I worked late, I'd fix her car when it acted up. Simple, consistent gestures. The kind of love that didn't need validation from Instagram stories or club selfies. One Saturday morning, we drove out to Red Rocks for sunrise yoga, a first for me. Afterward, we sat on a ledge overlooking the valley, sipping coffee. She turned to me, sunlight catching her hair, and said, "You ever think about how sometimes the universe has to break you before it rebuilds you?" I smiled. Yeah. I think about that a lot, actually. She grinned. Guess we both got rebuilt then. That hit me harder than I expected. The message that changed everything. A few weeks later, I got a message on Reddit. The username looked vaguely familiar, Madison_throwaway. I hesitated, then opened it. "Hey, Ryan. I know it's weird messaging you here, but I didn't want to text. I wanted to thank you. Not for forgiving me, I didn't deserve that, but for not hating me when you had every right to. I've been in therapy for a few months now. My counselor says I used people to fill a void I didn't understand. Turns out, that void was self-worth. I hurt you because I didn't respect myself. I know words can't undo the damage, but I hope life's treating you kindly. M." I stared at the message for a long time, my chest tight. It wasn't an attempt to rekindle anything. There was no manipulation this time. Just, accountability. Genuine, quiet remorse. And for the first time since everything went down, I felt real closure. So I replied. "Hey M. I appreciate you saying that. I hope therapy helps you heal, and I really mean that. Life's been good, I'm happy now. Take care of yourself. R." That was the last time we ever spoke. Full circle. Life has this funny way of giving you the exact test you once failed, just to prove you've grown. Mine came one night about a year later. Emily and I were at a friend's engagement party. Music, laughter, people everywhere. At one point, a woman across the room caught my eye. Blonde, tall, confident. For a second, I thought it was Madison. My heart jumped, then settled when I realized it wasn't. But that moment reminded me of something important. I didn't flinch from the memory anymore. The ghost had finally stopped haunting me. Later that night, as Emily and I walked to the car, she slipped her hand into mine. "You okay?" she asked. I smiled. "Yeah. I'm really okay." And I meant it. The redemption. A few months later, Emily and I decided to take a week off and drive up to Estes Park. Cabin in the woods, no Wi-Fi, no distractions. Just peace. On our last night there, as we sat by the fire, she turned to me and said, "Can I ask you something personal?" "Sure. What's one thing you've learned from everything you've been through?" I thought about it for a moment, staring at the flames dancing in the fireplace. "I learned that love isn't about who excites you the most," I said slowly. "It's about who calms your soul. And I learned that forgiveness isn't about them, it's about freeing yourself." She smiled softly, leaned her head on my shoulder, and whispered, "That's beautiful." We sat there for a long time, just listening to the fire crackle and the wind outside. It felt like peace, the kind of peace I didn't even know I'd been craving all those years. The viral ending, karma comes full circle. Here's the part that turned this whole story into the kind of Reddit post that blows up. Because karma didn't just stop at the breakup, it made sure the message was clear. Almost 2 years after I walked out, I got tagged in a post by an old college friend. It was a photo from a local charity event. In the background, standing behind the volunteer booth, was Madison. She looked healthy. Peaceful. There was a small caption under her name, Madison Cole, Event Coordinator, Women's Recovery Program. That hit me like a wave. She wasn't partying anymore. She wasn't chasing validation. She was helping other women rebuild their lives. It felt like the universe had written its own epilogue. The woman who once destroyed herself chasing chaos now dedicating her life to helping others find balance. And me? I was sitting next to Emily, scrolling through that photo, smiling quietly. Not out of pride, not out of nostalgia, just gratitude. Gratitude that we both survived the storm. Final reflection, my Reddit confession. So yeah. That's my story. From heartbreak to healing, from chaos to calm. People in the comments always ask, do you believe in karma? And I do. But not the Hollywood kind, where bad people get struck by lightning. Real karma is quieter. It's watching someone who wronged you finally face themselves. It's waking up one day and realizing you're free. If I could go back, I wouldn't change a thing. Because Madison's betrayal gave me clarity. Jake's toxicity gave her truth. And both of those paths led us to something better, growth. So if you're reading this, stuck in a relationship that drains you, listen. You don't have to wait for the fire to burn everything down before you walk away. You can leave now. You can rebuild. And one day, you'll wake up next to peace, and realize that's the real, happily ever after. Epilogue, 2 years later. I proposed to Emily last fall, on a trail overlooking Bear Lake. She said yes. We're getting married next summer in the Rockies, simple, small, just family and close friends. Sometimes, on quiet nights, I still think about Madison, not with bitterness, but with a strange fondness. Because without her, I wouldn't have found this version of myself. Without the heartbreak, I wouldn't have understood what love truly means. So to everyone reading this who's still healing, still wondering if it gets better. It does. Not overnight. Not easily. But one day, you'll stop looking back, and the silence that once felt heavy will start to feel like peace. And when that happens, you'll know. You've made it.